Hi, my name is Sarah Yasonic. I'm going to be walking through our GitLab integration with Grafana today. I've got two kind of goals of this video. One is to just walk through the features we have so people understand them. And two is to also demo setup for GitLab team members, basically so engineers can develop against these features quickly and easily, and so anyone else can demo or verify changes, view these features in a quick and easy way. So the first thing I want to say is that our Grafana integration is not meant to be our primary method for monitoring applications. We have features in GitLab which are pretty similar. Like here, we're on the metrics dashboard, very similar to Grafana dashboards. You can configure these. And one of the features we'll look at is that we can embed these charts in issues like this here. We can do something really similar with Grafana if a organization prefers to use their existing monitoring infrastructure, or for some reason they can't use the built-in GitLab monitoring solutions. So there are just 3 features that I'm going to talk about. 2 I'm going to talk about in detail, and 1 I'm just going to mention. The first one is a pretty small feature, but very useful, to link to the Grafana dashboards from the GitLab dashboards. So this one is pretty straightforward to set up. Within our project, we can just go to Settings, Operations, and under this External Dashboard section, we can include a link to any Grafana dashboards, or if you're not using Grafana, you can link to those dashboards too. So I guess I have a link to something Grafana someplace. Let's use this. Oh, didn't like that. Why didn't we like that? Let's just go with that. Okay. So now that we've saved this dashboard URL, if we go to Operations Metrics, where the metrics for a project live, we'll now see a View Full Dashboard button in the upper right-hand corner, which will take us to our Grafana dashboards. So that's the first feature, pretty straightforward. I will move on to the next one. So the next feature is a pretty cumbersome thing to set up just for testing, but it is going to allow us to embed Grafana charts in GitLab flavored Markdown. So that's issues, merge requests, comments, snippets, all over the place in a particular project for which the integration with Grafana is set up. So to set up and test this easily, there are a couple of prereqs that I've already gone through. One of them is to have a project with Auto DevOps and a GitLab managed Prometheus installed. So I did that by going to Operations, Kubernetes, and setting up an integration with this cluster, and then installing Helm, a runner, and Prometheus, and then deploying to production. So I actually have a running Prometheus instance and a instrumented application that are spitting out metrics for me. So I can query this Prometheus instance to also populate my Grafana instance. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. First thing I'm going to do is expose the Prometheus instance so that I can actually reach it in order to hook it up to Grafana. So I'm going to go over to Google Cloud Platform where my cluster lives. I'm going to go to Services and Ingress. And I'm going to look directly for my Prometheus service. And I'm going to go find my cluster, which is this one right here. So here is the Prometheus service. I'm going to take note of this ports section down here and this target port, because I'm going to need that in a minute. So from here, I'm going to look up at deployments, and I'm going to open this deployment up. And now I'm going to take an action to expose this deployment. I'm going to quickly reference docs here because I need to remember which port goes where. So for port, I'm going to choose just something really big. And for my target port, I'm going to take that port I found in the previous step. Oh, so that's 9090. And here, I'm just going to choose whatever port I want. Now I'm going to change this to be a load balancer and hit expose. This is going to take a few minutes to create my endpoint. So I'm going to pull the things I need in order to actually see that. So here, it's in the process of getting created. This endpoint should show up in just a minute, and I'll be able to test that that works correctly. While we wait for that, I'm going to go ahead and create a Grafana instance that I can hook up to a staging or production account. I can also run Grafana locally on my machine, but that's not as helpful for most folks. So I'm going to do this the big way. So, I'm actually logged in. We're going to log out. And I'm going to create a new account so I can show the full steps of this process. So if we actually just try to go through Grafana's products, they don't mention that they have a free hosted version on their main landing page. But if we sign up, we'll see that option. I can have no dash, no underscore. Why is it being unhappy? Okay, we'll just go with Sonic demo. Okay. Now from here, I'm going to go to my Grafana, and here's this hosted Grafana option right here, and I can just create a Grafana instance. Oh, I need to check my email. Yes, okay. So here is this option to create a hosted Grafana instance. I'm gonna go ahead and walk through the flow. I want a free one, most definitely, and it's gonna be at sesonicdemo.grafana.net. I do not want anything to be paid. Okay, so this is going to take a second to fully get through what it all needs. So I'm going to go ahead and check on my Prometheus endpoint, see if that's up and running yet. Yes, it is. Hooray! So now I can test out that a query will work. Marvelous. So I've got a Prometheus endpoint, and now I have a Grafana instance over here that's ready to go. So I'm going to configure Grafana to look at this Prometheus instance that I just created by creating a new data source. Add data source. It's going to be a Prometheus data source. I need to grab my URL. I don't need all of the CRUD that I just added onto it. So here is the URL for my Prometheus instance. Everything's great. We'll save and test. My data source is working. Hurrah. gonna go add a dashboard really quick because I want to have something to embed in one of my issues. We're just gonna use that same metric I just tested with. There are a couple of things I need to do. One, I need to make sure that this query is pointing to our Prometheus data source. I'm gonna specify a legend label. Ooh, looks lovely. And I'm gonna rename this. Okay. You can see it's not from from very long of an amount of data, but let's go ahead and save this. This is my test dashboard. Marvelous. This is ready to be configured in our GitLab project. So there's one more thing I need while I'm here, and I need an API key so that our GitLab project can access all of this content that's in Grafana. So I'll go ahead and create that. It needs to be admin. It's a read-only like process. It's not writing any changes to Grafana, but there are some things that it needs access to in order to embed charts that are behind an admin flag. So I'm gonna grab my key and I'm gonna head over to my project. So here I'm gonna go to settings, operations, and here's this Grafana authentication section. I'm gonna give it my API token. Gonna grab my URL, set it to active, and save. Hooray! Okay, now I'm gonna see if that worked by creating a new issue that has my chart in it. I really hope that I did everything I needed to make sure this works correctly. Where are you, my dashboards? Okay, so I'm gonna set this just to the last little amount of time so that it looks a little better. And I can create a link to this chart by going to the panel's share menu. You can toggle the time range variables from the URL, but the template variables are required if any are present on the chart. This chart doesn't happen to have any template variables, so it wouldn't make a huge difference, but just a limitation because Prometheus queries are actually technically different than Grafana expressions, so we require those template variables in order to be able to effectively query Prometheus. So I've grabbed my chart link. I'm gonna go over and create a new issue. And it should take a second to load. Ah, there it is. Cool. I'm glad it worked. So even though this is formatted like a GitLab chart, this data is actually coming from Grafana. Well, from Prometheus through Grafana. So that is the basic rundown of this process. I'll include some documentation links to each of these features and how to configure a lot of this, and hopefully this has been helpful for people. Thanks so much. Quick addendum. I said I was going to talk about 3 features, but I only talked about 2 of them. The third feature is for monitoring your own GitLab instance for self-hosted GitLab users. Basically, GitLab Omnibus installs ship with Grafana automatically and a handful of different dashboards to help you monitor your GitLab instance. I'm not going to go into the details of configuring that or what all it ships with, but I definitely wanted to mention it because it's definitely part of our Grafana integration. Thanks, bye.